Welcome back to the Food on Demand podcast, where we dish up insights on the future of food relating to off-premises operations and the overall digital dining experience. I'm Bernadette Heyer, managing editor, and I'm super excited the podcast is finally back, and we have a new co-host, Hans here. I am super excited to have you and would love if you'd give a quick intro.
Well, thank you. It's very nice to be here for my first podcast. And a little bit about me is that I got my start in journalism, as a lot of writers do, just with community newspapers down in Texas. I covered hard news in city council meetings and local government, that kind of thing, and then also some feature stories. But I've always been fascinated by technology and the food service industry as a whole. And luckily that led me right here. And I'm excited to be here with you every other week for another Food on Demand podcast. And of course, I have stories coming throughout the week every time with foodondemand.com.
Yes, well, happy to have you. Speaking of stories, we do have a great interview today with Emily Knight, the CEO and president of the Texas Restaurant Association. But first, we're going to get back into our quick bite segment where we both share what newsy items are on our plate this week. So, Hans, you can take it away.
I would say one story that I'm excited for our readers to see is about Potbelly partnering with Flyby. And Flyby, they offer AI technology, AI location intelligence technology, rather, to restaurants like Potbelly. And Potbelly is a sandwich shop, and they're rolling it across all across their national locations. And basically, it will be revamping the way that they approach curbside pickup and that kind of thing. So it's really exciting to see where that's headed. And Flyby is a pioneer in that sector.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to highlight curbside as, as an important part of the off-prem ecosystem. So it's always interesting to see what technology is helping streamline that. For my newsy item, I'm actually going to announce a program that is live. It's our Outstanding Operator program. And so if you check out our website, we'll be both releasing some feature articles on restaurants each week. And this is our program where we recognize 20 restaurant brands from across the nation that are excelling in off-premises operations or being innovative, whether that's drive-through, takeout, delivery, catering, and so forth. And so starting last week and continuing until our conference, May 5th through 7th in Dallas, we are publishing these feature articles. You can check them out. Great interviews with leaders that dive into what's really working behind the scenes. So, yeah.
Well, you've got me excited to do some reading, but what do you say we hop into the interview with Emily?
All right, now it is time for our guest interview with Emily Williams Knight. She is the CEO and president of the Texas Restaurant Association. Super happy to have you, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Wonderful. Well, before we get into all these questions we have for you, I would love to learn more about you in general. If you wanted to tell us a bit about your background first, and then we'll get into your current role.
Yeah, of course. I always start with going back to third grade because I think it's just such an important message, especially for young people. But I was raised military family, and so everything is the same. Everyone's house is the same. You live on a base. And one night a week, I could stay up in the third grade and watch this show called Hotel. And it was a fictitious hotel in San Francisco, and it was dreamy for someone like me. And I just dreamt of being Connie Selica and running a major hotel. And so in the third grade, I went to my mom and dad and said, I'm going into hospitality. Fast forward through an undergraduate degree at Boston University in hospitality, working for Marriott, Pizza Hut, being a college president, taking programs around the world to make sure that economies that rely on tourism had the educated, really trained workforce. And then coming to the TRA, right? Who would have thought right before the pandemic? It was a move that most people didn't see coming. I thought I'd be here for a little bit. And almost 7 years later, it's one of the greatest joys that I have to protect and advance 58,000 restaurants. Most people don't know that you can have the best food in the world and the best marketing plan and the best price. But if the regulatory environment does not accommodate or really, I guess, prohibits growth and makes things challenging and less predictable, you can't be successful. And so majority of our job and my amazing team is to make sure good laws pass, bad laws are stopped, and that we create all the products and services for restaurants to be successful. And so it's just an honor to be in the role.
When I was doing some research in preparation for this interview, I saw that, well, you went to plenty of universities. That's kind of outlined, a lot of your life. And I did see that you were captain of the women's basketball team at Newbury College. I wonder if you could just outline, is that at all applicable to, some of the skills that you use now with the TRA?
Wow, what a great question. I just posted for International Women's Day that I think it's 80% of C-suite CEOs or women who get to the CEO played sports. I think it's a huge piece. In the third grade again, fourth grade, I think I was like 5'8". I'm almost 5'11" now. And I was in dance. And I think my mom was wise enough to go, "This is not your future, kid." Put a basketball in my hand. I was pretty squirrely, a lot of energy, loved to win at things, and played basketball really my whole life, still pick up a ball. Of course, pushed my daughters into basketball like any good mother would who loves the sport. And I have a daughter now that's a Division I athlete at the University of Alabama. And I can tell you, watching her go through that journey, it is brutal, absolutely brutal. And to see that her life, she will know how to compete and to win and lose and work as a team. I think sports are a huge foundation, and everyone, especially girls, should be involved in sports for sure. You just have to be able to compete and hurt and have grit and not give up and fight, but do it in a way that isn't often demeaning or belittling to others, and working with people who aren't good and being supportive, and all of that translates into leadership and into life. So I think it's a huge part of my foundation for sure.
Yes, definitely kind of a different type of pressure with the buzzer beater and then everything else that's going on in the restaurant industry, but kind of
Yeah.
neat to see.
Yeah. I get it. Maybe they're the same, right? It's like there's just things coming at you on a constant basis.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love that you asked that to kind of hear about that background and learn some unique things about our guests. Speaking about TRA and how many restaurants you work with and aid, speaking about the policy side of things, what feels most urgent right now in the industry? Where do you think we might need more alignment when it comes to operators, tech, and policy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's this intersection that's happening between sort of labor cost pressures and technology. And I think that operators and our technology partners really have to come to the table to determine that it's not just about replacing people with technology, but it's about just operating costs aren't stopping. They're continuing to rise for restaurants. And many of them are really a challenge, right? To compress without hurting that experience for either the worker or that experience you're giving to the guest. And so this is when sort of policymakers have to sit at the table with associations like us, operators, attending conferences like yours to actually learn about how we can all come together and look at the complexity of policy today, look at how the business model is evolving, and then make sure we have the right rules for our technology partners to support us. I think that intersection right now to sort of reduce friction, to support innovation. If you think about third-party delivery, you think about the rules around AI and consumer data, how we grow that, what I call off-premise economy. It's going to take all the stakeholders at the table to put their individual goals aside and to work for the betterment of the industry. And I think that's the greatest, I would say not even risk right now, but I see it as a great opportunity for us to come together as one to solve these challenges.
Yeah, it definitely seems almost like the Wild West out there right now with the oncoming of AI and how fast that's being adopted. Everyone's talking about it, people are testing it, and it's not super regulated, as you mentioned. So, how do you think restaurants should maybe utilize AI? What you're seeing, how are they utilizing it to, not lose that human touch, but also bring it in the best way possible?
Yeah, I think, the word hospitality, when I wrote my newsletter for the first of the year, I was sort of reflect on what I think the year will bring, right? We have all these estimates on traffic and the economy, and I always try to find one word that I think is going to be the driver. And believe it or not, I wrote hospitality. And the reason is I had not written that word down in probably 3 years. It's all been about speed. And I think what we're hearing from the consumer is the biggest question they're asking is, was it worth it? So, number one, AI has to be used to enhance hospitality, right? It has to be the driver. It just can't be, I need to reduce cost and outsource this or put AI in place to make this happen, right? It really has to be the responsible path for AI is how to automate what is repetitive, maybe what is burdensome to your employee or to your guest, and then your team can spend more time with their guests, right? I think that's number one, that you have to have hospitality at the heart of these AI decisions. And I think when you do that, the guest feels it. And you get that result of maybe a higher check average, maybe more return visits. But unless you think through the guest experience, you're going to probably make poor decisions. I can tell you one of the greatest things that keeps me up at night right now are the number of independent restaurants that are the HR manager, the procurement, the supply chain expert, financial, that's one person. And when there's this pressure on that business, they tend to grab for anything. And there's nothing more palatable to a company, to a partner, than having a potential consumer under distress, right? So the operator's like, that sounds good. You can do that for me. Great. And they jam it into the system, but they're not taking a giant step back and saying, how do I increase and make that hospitality, that guest experience better? What tools can solve for that? So I think the responsible way to do it is to have that AI partner, technology partner with that owner sitting down and having a really serious conversation about what tools and resources they can bring in to enhance that guest experience, and in turn, make that employee's experience better because they'll have more time to serve that guest. That has to be the question they're answering.
Can you talk a little bit about how you're seeing restaurant operators balance, eagerly embracing AI technology and then also, using a fair share of skepticism with this type of thing?
Yeah, I almost think there's two camps right now, and my belief is that there's one differentiator. So I think there's folks that are scared of AI in general, and then there's groups that have gone all in on AI, and it really depends on the operator. What I am finding the single differentiation point is those that have tried it. And so what we're trying to do, and we're even thinking about creating a certificate program for all the key areas like supply chain and ordering and scheduling and payroll, that you could say to a restaurant, especially an independent restaurant, here's your sheet, right? These are the things that you can do today. But what we're finding is if they simply try it, even putting Chat GPT on their laptop or phone and using it for personal use, that is the one differentiator of people who are afraid of it or not. They just have to start. And so I think those two camps, we're finding as an association, we have a real responsibility to make sure they know that AI isn't going to save them, right? AI is not going to save your restaurant. AI should augment some of those burdensome, repetitive tasks and make you more efficient, either with data or with your guest experience. But I think that's the balance right now, is some see it as a saving grace, even though they don't understand it. And that's not its role. And then it's attending, frankly, conferences like yours, talking to other operators that have already implemented these tools, learning from them, sitting into panels and listening what's worked, what's not worked. There is no shortage of right now reaching out across, the street or going to a conference and learning and just simply absorbing. That's the best suggestion we can give people today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you mentioning the conference because planning the agenda, AI has been such a big topic the last few years. And the conversation is, shifting now into digital hospitality and ways to make GM's lives easier with AI. You mentioned, labor scheduling, inventory, things like that. And I think it's important to remember it should be an add-on, as you mentioned, not an all saving grace. So
Yes.
yeah, any other comment on the AI front?
Yeah, I would just say, we need our assistant general managers and general managers in our restaurants to be out on the floor with their people.
Mhm.
I know I joined this industry and have been in, feels like, every facet, but I did it because I love people and I love to serve. And hospitality people have a heart for hospitality. And so if we want to keep our workforce, it can't just be about taking all the tasks off the table and then expecting them to behave the same. People who want to serve, people who want to create a memory, a great experience. What we need as restaurant operators are those employees to unleash that heart and soul of serving others. You can do that with the integration of AI, but you have to be sure that you're using it as a way to make sure that the guest has a better experience, but your employee. And so I think no GM decides, I want to run a restaurant because I want to sit in the back and work on systems and technology all day. That is not, we tend not to like those things. We have a heart to serve. And so I think that's where AI comes in as an ability to augment. And it's also okay to make small steps. I'll say that too, right? It's not an all or nothing. Integrate one tool, see how it works, see how it feels, integrate another tool, right? But don't just transform overnight, especially with no change management plan for yourself or your team. That's where things really go sideways quickly.
And now pivoting a little bit to off-prem and to catering specifically, I've been speaking with some operators for our Outstanding Operator Awards and the feature stories that come along with those, and I'm hearing a lot of really innovative approaches to catering. How are you kind of seeing that revenue channel just change and the different approaches that different restaurants are taking?
Yeah, for us, what we're seeing is catering is really becoming one of the strongest incremental revenue channels for restaurants. We have restaurants right now that have doubled, tripled their catering. It requires a lot. It requires operational resilience. It requires a really sound packaging strategy. That sounds crazy, but you really got to think through sort of reliable packaging and transport and logistics. You can't just simply say, we're going to start to cater. You need lead times. You need to know how it integrates into your business. But what we're finding is, and interesting enough, we have some of our city restaurants, let's call it Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio. A lot of folks haven't returned to work, and that hurts the local economy. And so we have a lot of restaurants now that are doing all the office catering on a daily basis for these companies that are now bringing people back 4 days, 5 days a week. That is something we've never had before. And so, I was in a restaurant, believe it or not, in Little Waco, Texas this week, and they're doing all the catering now for the football and basketball team at a big university. It has literally not only transformed their business, but as they go out and cater, they're opening up all sorts of new lead gen, new opportunities. But he said we had to learn the hard way. We had to learn how to transport soup. We had to learn how to make sure that the people that were serving could set it up. So it's not just, I'm going to start a catering program, but I would say if you're not thinking through catering, whether it be events, whether it be school districts that are struggling with after school lunch programs, whether it be, going to corporations, it should absolutely be something you're considering, because especially around the holiday and event period, it can completely save a P&L in some cases if you can execute it properly.
Yeah, and sticking with catering, thinking about the fulfillment side of it for restaurants, many partner with third-party delivery for that. Some do it in-house, some have a hybrid model. What are you seeing on that front, and any just advice on when people are thinking about the fulfillment side of catering?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, it's not going away, right? Sort of, I call it off premise, right? Or food on demand. It is not only is it not going away, I think we're hitting some friction points. I've been traveling across the state of Texas with my colleague Kelsey. We are talking to every single chapter. We have 20. So Texas, people forget I'm from Connecticut, right? So we've got from El Paso to McAllen is as much as like from here to California. And so it's massive geography and every community is different. But the one thing we're hearing a lot about is things like customer data, right? I'm the restaurant owner. I should own that customer data, but I don't with my third party partner. It's things like, believe it or not, the evolution of the delivery model is one example. And we're hearing a lot of consumer orders. They place their order, they're told it'll be there in 30 minutes. That burger and fries leaves that restaurant, it's hot. But on the way, let's say, and I won't name a name, but that delivery person gets a beep, stop at CVS. This customer also needs a toothbrush and toothpaste. They've added that to the order. They pick that up. By the time that food arrives, it's cold. It's likely going to be a chargeback. When the restaurant lets go of that order, that is when the restaurant should be accountable and the accountability ends, and that does not exist today. So what we're seeing is that marketplace continues to grow, whether it be through catering or third-party direct consumer delivery. We're going to have to go back and visit the policy framework, right? Where does food safety come in? How do we legitimize the workforce that is doing this, whether it be financially or through training and development? How do we make sure when it comes to chargebacks and who owns that guest experience? And then most important, who owns the customer data? And how does that restaurant build a relationship in this third party marketplace with a consumer when they don't have the data of that consumer, even though they may have been coming to that restaurant for 4, 5, 6 years? And so there's a lot of policy questions to answer. I know in Texas, we're working on that, but it's going to take everyone at the table, again, talking about everyone has a business model. Everyone needs to be successful, but I think the evolution of the technology and how the consumer buying has changed, whether catering or direct to consumer, we're going to have to put some guardrails on that to protect the restaurant for sure.
Yeah, so you mentioned that this whole topic around customer data, but as far as other regulatory or policy shifts, what do you think are some really big topics going forward for the next few years regarding off-premises operations as a whole?
Yeah, I think, there's things like fee caps, for example. That's something so whether it be in the credit card swipe fee space or for delivery, should we be looking at things like reasonable fee caps? Some states have put those in place. It's something that we're looking at. It's not very Texan, but it's certainly something we're considering. It's streamlining off premise permitting. So we have things like food trucks as one example. We have catering. How hard is it for you as a restaurant to pull that permit? Is it a challenge when you're trying to get permitted to do something? Is that length of time? What is the safety and compliance? There's currently no required training in the delivery space. And so I pick up a tuna sandwich and I'm driving in the 110-degree, sun, and is that sitting on the front seat? It sounds like silly things, but those are some of the policy decisions and regulatory decisions I think that we're going to have to come to terms with, not only to make it easier for our restaurants to be successful, but also for our third-party partners and any kind of offsite. It usually comes down to permitting and regulation, and that's something that we're keeping our eye on. And we're about to head into next year, our legislative session, the 90th in the state of Texas, and I'm pretty certain that different types of off-premise conversations around policy and regulation will be on the table for sure.
What are your thoughts surrounding the rise of robotics and automation when it comes to the delivery front? Do you have any take on that? I know Dallas is, has a lot of testing with drone delivery. Just interested in that from you.
Yeah, it's incredible because I remind people before I came into this role, so what about 8, 9, 10 years. So I was in China when food robots they had their own lanes on the highway, right? I mean, they were just coming down. They had a little QR code, 7 boxes, you tap it, pull your food, goes on to the next. I mean, I remember thinking like, wow, I wonder if this will ever happen here. We have them all over Austin. And I think they're going to play a key role again, both drone delivery. We have a lot of that testing right now. I attended a conference 3 years ago in Sun Valley where we ordered on our phone and on a mountaintop, just like today in the Olympics. They were delivering calzones on a ski hill. I think it's a lot closer than people think. And I think there's going to definitely have to be policy conversations around that, around the permitting and regulation. I think you have robotics in the kitchens to help automate those redundant tasks, repetitive tasks that nobody really wants to do. You have it in agriculture. And I think what you're going to see is this evolution in delivery. We're even seeing it in the driverless cars that are running all over our cities now. You can put a delivery order in that and deliver it, and there's no human connection whatsoever. So I think it's first you have to accept that it's here, it's not coming, and then second, we've got to put really good guardrails for safety, both food safety, which is such a priority for us. We've got to keep people safe when they dine with us on or off premise, but also how do you regulate that? Not only the airspace, but the road space going forward. I think it just takes a lot of optimism and a lot of acceptance that it can be good for everyone if done in a really safe way.
Yeah.
I don't think that you could have a more probably powerful or potent example for that food safety than the tuna sandwich on the front seat.
It scares me, right? Like I'm all about, we have food safety, food handling requirements for our workforce. I get that they're a different type of classification of employee, but I even think if I'm an employee, I'd want some basic sanitation and things like that. I mean, I hate to say it, but we just can't ever get anyone sick. That's our number one job. And so, we do have to think through things like that, I think, very carefully.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we hit a lot of nuggets here, and I'm really excited to bring this conversation to life at the Food on Demand conference. Very honored that Emily will be moderating a session for us on stage. I wanted to ask why you think events, out there like ours, as well as the Texas Restaurant Association in general, what role it helps play in shaping the future of dining and the importance of attending or connecting with peers.
Yeah, I think there's, I feel like sometimes I want to climb on a mountain and just sort of scream out, right? Like we're here. I think what's interesting about the role we play across my state association colleagues, across the National Restaurant Association, is that we spend every day worrying about the things that you probably don't care about, aren't interesting to you, but yet can change the trajectory of your business. And so we get a line of sight into every piece of data, everything, every piece of policy decision, the trends, the anecdotes. And I feel like sometimes we sit with all this knowledge, and what conferences do is they actually break down those silos. And so by breaking down the silos, we can sit and listen to operators and really hear about what are the pain points. And we put it into 2 buckets. Is this an operational challenge? Meaning, is there a product or solution that can fix this operator's issue? Or is this a policy, legislation/law challenge? And that's where we come in. And if you think about it, whether it be the evolution of alcohol to go, before the pandemic, you would never have imagined walking out of a restaurant with 2 gallons of margarita and a thing of nachos or more with bottles of wine, right? That didn't exist. You would never have thought about going into a restaurant and being able to buy grocery items, right? Those all had to be legislated and turned into laws. we learned to do that through the pandemic, right? That was two of the very positive outcomes. It's no different now. I think what you're doing by bringing people together with all sorts of backgrounds is that if we all come to the table and put our individual needs aside, we can continue to ensure that the greater restaurant and food service industry thrives. That's what conferences are for. It's not only for learning, but it's for sharing. It's for sharing what's working, it's for sharing ideas, and then working together to solve them. Because when I go to the legislature, the most powerful thing I can do is to bring a bunch of restaurant operators with me, their voters that can actually say, this is what it's doing to my business, Senator so-and-so. And so that partnership is critical. And you build those relationships at conferences like this one.
Well, we've really appreciated hearing your insight. It's so nice to hear from a food service super nerd like yourself. And of course, at the conference, there's going to be,
Super
you'll
nerd.
be surrounded by those. But as we round out here, I actually have a few, we call it the final course, or the last few lightning questions for you, lightning round questions. So, not too intense. These are just fun.
Okay.
So I'd love to hear from you. What is your favorite underrated Texas restaurant brand?
Oh, underrated. I don't know. This is when you ask like I have twins, which is my favorite. Like I mean, we have like 58,000, right? Like I don't know. I eat out all the time. I don't know if anything's underrated. I love Matt's El Rancho. It's not underrated, but it's like my go-to comfort food in Austin. I love Chewy's, believe it or not. I know
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
shame. It's like, again, it's just, I've had a lot of family meals there. I don't know. Like I will go from, believe it or not, eating a bowl in the morning at a, smoothie place to eating, here's an example. 2 days ago, I was served, we have a program in Texas where we have 60,000 people that are currently incarcerated, but about to be exiting, that are learning restaurant and culinary arts. I sat in one of the facilities 2 days ago and had a 3-course meal prepared by 22 of them that are hoping the restaurant industry can give them their second chance. It was an incredible meal. And so it's hard, it's just hard in my brain because I eat everywhere in Texas to pick one. I don't think I can.
All of the above works just fine.
Okay, good. That would have been a lot easier for me to say than go all over the place, but all of them.
When you're not visiting some of the great restaurants in Texas, when you're cooking, what is your specialty dish or favorite thing to dive into?
So here's the spoiler alert. I don't cook.
Fair enough.
I think I say this, it's ironic because I took undergrad classes at Boston University with incredible chefs. I was the president of Kendall College. We had hundreds of culinary students. And I served Thanksgiving the first year and made Thanksgiving dinner. The second year for the students, they put me on the line serving. And the third year I was at the door welcoming. And I think that was their way of saying, Dr. Knight should not be in here. So I actually don't cook. I'm very blessed with a husband who loves to cook, but I do eat out a lot.
Amazing.
And then the final lightning round question is, who is your favorite restaurant industry icon?
Someone I met more recently, and I've had from Anthony Bourdain across the board, my global travels, I've met incredible people. I just spent a lot of time, believe it or not, with Greg Creed from Yum Brands. And I think what I love about him is he's a person before he's a restaurant success story, right? He's on the boards of major companies. Why would he talk to someone like me? He literally goes out of his way to lift up people in their career and to specifically look for women and recognizes us as equal and just as opportunistic and capable. And I think it's people like him that look at the industry with the same heart that I do that we need in this industry, especially now. And so I just admire him for the person he is and the incredible success he had at Yum and Taco Bell. It's unbelievable.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Emily. We are at our time, but we just want to thank you again for coming on the podcast and sharing your valuable insight to our audience.
And we
Awesome.
look forward to seeing you again in May.
Yes, definitely. I'm excited you're coming. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, I hope everybody enjoyed the interview as much as we did today. And thanks again for joining us. We're going to be back here in another 2 weeks with another Food on Demand podcast. And until then, please feel encouraged to send any feedback or podcast suggestions to info@foodondemand.com. Thanks, everybody.